Corbin West, 44, repaired antique clocks in a quiet shop on East 3rd Street in Dayton, Ohio. Most people saw him as a gentle husband who trusted too easily. His neighbors believed Lauren West worked endless hospital shifts while Corbin spent lonely evenings polishing brass gears and eating microwaved dinners alone. What they didn't know was that Corbin had counted 7 impossible lies in just 13 days. So, one rainy Thursday night, he slid a tiny camera beneath the passenger seat of his wife's SUV. 23 minutes later, the passenger door opened. Black leather shoes stepped inside, and Corbin's heartbeat stopped when he recognized the face. Before we continue, tell me where you're watching from and what your local time is right now. I always enjoy seeing how far these stories travel. And if you love slow-burn mysteries filled with hidden truths and unforgettable twists, don't forget to subscribe, so you won't miss tomorrow's story. The people who walked past Corbin West's shop every morning rarely looked inside. They saw the same faded blue sign that read West Clock and Watch Restoration, the same brass bell above the door, and the same middle-aged man bent over tiny gears beneath a yellow work lamp. To most of Dayton, Ohio, Corbin was invisible. He repaired old things that nobody else cared about and spoke only when necessary. Some people mistook silence for weakness. Others mistook routine for ignorance. Neither assumption had ever bothered him. Every weekday, his pickup truck rolled into the parking lot. At exactly 7:42 a.m., he unlocked the front door, swept yesterday's dust from the wooden floor, started the coffee maker in the back office, and wound the grandfather clock that stood beside the register. The entire shop filled with soft ticking before the first customer arrived. Corbin loved that sound. Thousands of tiny movements working together without anyone noticing. Time never lied. People did. For 23 years he had repaired pocket watches passed down through 4 generations, railroad clocks rescued from abandoned stations, and expensive Swiss movements that jewelers refused to touch. Customers often joked that he could fix anything except his old pickup truck. He usually smiled politely, then returned to work. The magnifying loop over his eye had become part of his face. His hands rarely shook. His patience seemed endless. It was the same patience that had carried him through 14 years of marriage with Lauren. They had met at a church charity breakfast when Corbin was 30 and Lauren was 28. She laughed easily back then. She loved old bookstores, blueberry pancakes, and driving with the windows down even in October. Friends had called them the quiet couple. No drama, no fighting, no scandals. Just 2 ordinary people building an ordinary life. Or so everyone believed. Their house sat on a peaceful street near Belmont Park, with white siding, trimmed hedges, and a porch swing that barely moved anymore. Lauren used to sit there after dinner with iced tea while Corbin watered the flowers. Now the porch stayed empty. Dinner usually sat untouched until after 9, sometimes later. Lauren's job at Mercy General Hospital had supposedly become demanding over the last year. Administrative meetings, staffing shortages, emergency scheduling problems. At first, Corbin accepted every explanation. Hospitals never slept. Neither did emergencies. But little things had started changing. Lauren stopped asking about his day. She answered questions without looking up from her phone. She carried it into the bathroom, into the laundry room, even into the backyard while taking out the trash. One evening, Corbin asked if she wanted to watch a movie. She barely looked away from the screen. "I'm exhausted." Another night, he suggested dinner downtown. "I've got reports to finish." Sunday afternoons disappeared too. Church became optional. Family visits became excuses. She seemed physically present but emotionally somewhere else. Still, Corbin never raised his voice, never searched her purse, never followed her car. He simply watched. The narrator could see what no one around Corbin noticed. His mind never stopped measuring patterns. Just as he listened for irregular beats inside broken clocks, he listened for irregular rhythms inside everyday life. Lauren's stories no longer fit together. One Tuesday, she claimed she had stayed late organizing patient files. Corbin nodded. The following afternoon, he drove past Mercy General to deliver a repaired watch to retired surgeon Dr. Milton Graves. Lauren's SUV wasn't there. He said nothing. Thursday, she said she attended a 3-hour management meeting. When she arrived home, there was dried mud on the tires. Hospital parking garages were concrete. Again, Corbin said nothing. Instead, after dinner, he opened an old leather notebook. Its pages were filled with neat handwriting. Dates, times, gas receipts, weather conditions, simple observations. Nothing emotional, nothing dramatic, just facts. June 2nd, left home 6:18 p.m., returned 12:44 a.m., claimed emergency staffing meeting. Gas station charge in Riverside District, June 5th, returned wearing different perfume. Hospital ID badge missing, claimed left in office, June 7th. Phone call at 10:51 p.m., stepped outside before answering. 7 entries, then 8, then 9. Corbin never imagined himself becoming suspicious. He disliked suspicion. It wasted energy. Evidence mattered. Evidence always mattered. His customers trusted him because he never guessed what was wrong with the clock. He opened it, examined every wheel, found the broken tooth, then fixed it. Marriage, he believed, deserved the same discipline. The people around him misunderstood that silence. His neighbor, Frank Collins, often waved from across the fence. Lauren, working late again, Corbin smiled. Looks that way. Frank laughed. She's lucky to have a patient guy like you. Corbin simply nodded. He never corrected anyone. He never complained. Even Lauren seemed to mistake his calm for blindness. She stopped hiding small inconsistencies. Receipts remained inside her purse. Hospital folders stayed unopened on the kitchen counter. A lipstick stain appeared on a coffee cup from a downtown cafe she claimed never to visit. The details accumulated quietly, like dust inside an old clock, until eventually the gears could no longer move. One rainy Wednesday evening, Corbin locked his shop at exactly 5:31 p.m. He drove home through steady rain while windshield wipers swept back and forth with mechanical precision. Lauren texted him at 6:02. Running late, executive meeting. Don't wait for dinner. Corbin read the message twice. Then he looked down at the folded parking receipt resting inside his notebook. It had slipped from Lauren's coat pocket that morning while hanging in the hallway closet. The receipt wasn't from Mercy General Hospital. It was from a private garage on Dryden Road, stamped 11:47 p.m., 43 miles away. Corbin folded the receipt carefully, placed it back inside the notebook, closed the cover. Outside, thunder rolled across Dayton. Inside the quiet kitchen, only the ticking wall clock filled the silence. And for the first time in 14 years of marriage, Corbin West realized he was no longer trying to trust his wife. He was trying to understand what she was hiding. Corbin West did not believe in coincidence. Years spent repairing mechanical clocks had taught him that every movement had a cause. If a gear slipped, another gear forced it. If a spring snapped, pressure had built somewhere long before the break. Nothing happened without a reason. People were no different. The following Monday morning began exactly as the previous hundreds had. The bell above the shop door rang at 8:03 when Mrs. Evelyn Carter walked in carrying a silver pocket watch that had belonged to her grandfather. Corbin welcomed her with the same quiet smile and spent 40 minutes adjusting a worn balance wheel while she talked about her grandchildren. His hands worked automatically. His thoughts stayed elsewhere. At 9:47, Lauren texted, "Busy day, emergency staffing meeting tonight. Don't wait up." Corbin read the message once before placing his phone beside the workbench. He did not answer. Instead, he opened the leather notebook hidden inside the bottom drawer. Another line appeared. June 14th. Emergency staffing meeting. Text received 9:47 a.m., nothing else. No opinions, no accusations, just facts. Outside, Dayton moved through another ordinary summer afternoon. Delivery trucks rumbled along Main Street. Teenagers crossed intersections with headphones in their ears. The courthouse clock chimed noon. Everything looked normal. Corbin knew better than to trust appearances. That evening, Lauren left home at 6:11. She wore navy blue scrubs beneath a gray rain jacket and kissed Corbin lightly on the cheek before grabbing her keys. "I'll probably be late." "I figured," she smiled. The smile looked practiced. The front door closed softly behind her. Corbin waited until he heard the SUV disappear down the street before walking into the kitchen. He poured himself coffee and sat quietly. The house suddenly felt much larger than usual. The refrigerator hummed. Rain tapped against the windows. The wall clock counted every passing second. At 8:36, Lauren sent another message. "Meeting still going. Sorry." Corbin stared at it for several seconds. Then he reached for his laptop. Mercy General Hospital published employee schedules through an internal portal that many department heads accidentally left visible through archived newsletters and event calendars. Corbin had discovered that months earlier while searching for information about a charity auction. He wasn't hacking, he was simply reading public information. Tonight's executive conference room reservation ended at 7:15 p.m. Nothing after that. No emergency management meeting, no overnight scheduling session, no department gathering. Corbin leaned back in his chair. His expression never changed. He simply wrote another note. Calendar conflict at 10:02 p.m. Lauren called. "I'll be another hour." "You okay?" "Yeah, busy." "I understand." The conversation lasted 18 seconds. Corbin noticed something strange. Music played faintly in the background. Not hospital announcements, not intercom speakers. It sounded like live country music, the kind played at restaurants near the riverfront. He said nothing. When the call ended, he returned to the notebook. Another line. Live music audible. The next afternoon brought another surprise. Corbin stopped at Harper's Hardware to buy wood polish for an old cuckoo clock. As he carried the small bag toward his truck, someone called his name. "Corbin." It was Emily Foster, Lauren's co-worker, the same Emily Lauren claimed she had spent nearly every late shift with during the previous week. Emily hugged him warmly. "How's Lauren doing?" Corbin answered naturally. "Working too much." Emily laughed. "I wouldn't know. I've been in Arizona for 9 days." The sentence lasted less than 5 seconds. It echoed inside Corbin's mind all afternoon. Arizona, 9 days. Lauren had mentioned Emily 3 separate times. Corbin drove back to his shop without turning on the radio. He repaired 3 wristwatches, answered 2 customer calls, changed a mainspring inside a German mantel clock. His face never revealed what his thoughts were doing. That night, Lauren returned home at 1:18 a.m. She entered quietly, believing Corbin asleep. From upstairs, he heard cabinet doors open, glass touching countertop, water running, then silence. The narrator could see what Lauren never noticed. Corbin remained awake, staring at the ceiling. Not angry, not crying, calculating. The following morning, he found a gas receipt lying inside Lauren's purse while hanging her jacket near the closet. He had not searched for it. The folded paper simply slid onto the floor. The station sat near Riverside Industrial Park, 42 miles from Mercy General. The purchase time read 11:11 p.m. She had supposedly been inside an executive meeting. Corbin folded the receipt exactly as he found it and placed it back inside. No confrontation, no questions, only another notebook entry. Days continued passing. The lies became easier for Lauren to tell. Corbin noticed she now locked her phone every time she entered a room. She stopped leaving it charging overnight. She deleted messages while standing over the kitchen sink. She smiled at notifications she never explained. Then came Thursday. Corbin was repairing a railroad conductor's watch when Lauren's phone buzzed on the dining table. She had forgotten it while changing clothes upstairs. The screen lit up for only a second. Long enough for a single name to appear. DM, no photograph, no company logo, no surname, just 2 letters. The message preview vanished before Corbin could read more. He never picked up the phone, never touched it, but those initials stayed with him. DM. Later that evening, Lauren hurried downstairs. "Have you seen my phone? It's on the table." She grabbed it immediately. Her expression tightened for half a second before relaxing. "I've got to run." Another emergency, another late night. The front door closed again. Corbin walked slowly toward the living room window. He watched Lauren's white SUV disappear around the corner beneath orange streetlights. Then he noticed something unexpected. Across the street, old Mr. Henderson was watering flowers. The retired mail carrier waved. Corbin walked over. "You working late too?" Henderson joked. "No. I thought I saw Lauren over near Dryden Road Tuesday night." Corbin remained perfectly still. "The warehouse district?" "Yeah, I figured maybe the hospital rented storage over there." Corbin smiled politely. "Maybe." He walked back across the lawn carrying nothing except those words. Dryden Road. Again. The same location printed on the parking receipt. The same industrial neighborhood 40 miles away. By midnight, the notebook contained 3 new entries. Emily in Arizona. Gas purchase Riverside Industrial Park. Neighbor saw a vehicle on Dryden Road. Corbin closed the notebook. His eyes drifted toward the family photograph hanging above the fireplace. 14 years. Vacations. Christmas mornings. Church picnics. Anniversaries. All frozen behind glass. Outside, another summer storm rolled across Ohio. Lightning illuminated the empty driveway for a brief second before darkness returned. Corbin stood quietly by the window watching rain collect beneath the porch light. He finally understood something that had taken weeks to admit. Trust without evidence was no longer enough. And if the truth refused to come home on its own, he would have to find it himself. The next morning, before opening his shop, Corbin parked outside an electronics store on Wilmington Pike. He walked inside with a simple shopping list. 1 miniature recording camera, 1 magnetic mounting bracket, 1 extra memory card. Nothing more, nothing less. The electronics store sat between a mattress outlet and a tax preparation office on Wilmington Pike, a place most people entered only when they needed something cheap and quickly forgotten. Corbin West arrived at 8:14 on Friday morning. He parked his old Ford pickup near the far corner of the lot and remained inside for almost 2 minutes before stepping out. He wasn't nervous. He simply wanted to think. The small notebook rested inside the glove compartment. Every observation from the past 2 weeks lived inside those pages. Every contradiction. Every impossible timeline. Every missing hour. He still hoped he was wrong. He hoped there was an explanation so ordinary that he would laugh at himself later. Maybe Lauren was planning a surprise anniversary trip. Maybe she was helping someone in secret. Maybe everything fit together in a way he simply could not see. But hope and evidence were 2 different things. Corbin had spent his entire adult life trusting evidence. Inside the store, a young salesman with bright red hair approached him. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for a compact recording camera." The salesman pointed toward a locked display case. They're mostly used for fleet vehicles or insurance documentation. Corbin nodded. I just need something reliable. The employee unlocked the glass cabinet and placed 3 models on the counter. One looked complicated. Another required cloud storage and monthly subscriptions. The third was simple. Magnetic mount, internal battery, high-definition video, automatic motion activation, no blinking lights, no wireless connection. Just recording. Corbin chose that one, along with an extra memory card and a spare battery pack. The receipt totaled $187.64. He folded it carefully into his wallet. As he walked toward the parking lot, sunlight reflected from the windshield of his truck. For a brief moment, he saw his own reflection. Gray beginning to spread in through his beard, fine wrinkles near his eyes. A man who had lived quietly for decades. A man who had never imagined buying surveillance equipment to understand his own marriage. The drive back home took 31 minutes. Lauren had already left for work. The house stood silent. Corbin carried the small box into his garage and closed the overhead door. He opened the instruction manual, read every page, then read it again. He charged the battery, inserted the memory card, adjusted the timestamp, recorded a short test video, deleted it, repeated the process. Everything had to work perfectly. The narrator could see something changing inside him. Not anger, not revenge, precision. The same careful discipline that guided his hands while rebuilding clocks now guided every decision. Nothing rushed, nothing careless. At 4:58 that afternoon, Corbin stood beside Lauren's white Honda Pilot parked in the driveway. He opened the passenger door slowly. The cabin smelled faintly of vanilla perfume and leather cleaner. A half-empty water bottle rested in the cup holder. Hospital paperwork covered the rear seat. Everything appeared ordinary. He crouched beside the passenger floorboard. The magnetic bracket clicked quietly beneath the seat frame. Invisible from outside. Invisible from inside unless someone crawled onto the floor. He adjusted the angle twice. The camera captured both front seats. The dashboard, the center console. Enough to record faces. Enough to capture conversations. He pressed the power button. One tiny vibration confirmed activation. No flashing lights, no sound. Only silence. Corbin stepped backward and closed the door. His heartbeat remained steady. He looked at the SUV for another few seconds before returning inside. He would never know whether this decision would save his marriage or destroy it. Maybe both. That evening, Lauren returned home around 5:30. She looked tired. At least she wanted him to believe she did. She microwaved leftover pasta and ate standing at the kitchen island while scrolling through emails. Corbin repaired an old mantel clock at the dining room table. Neither spoke much. Finally, Lauren glanced toward him. I'll probably have another emergency shift tonight. Corbin adjusted a brass screw. Busy week. She sighed dramatically. You have no idea. He smiled politely. I know hospitals never sleep. The answer seemed to satisfy her. At exactly 6:26 p.m., Lauren left the house carrying her laptop bag. Corbin stood near the front window after the SUV disappeared down Maple Avenue. The grandfather clock behind him struck 6:30. Each chime echoed through the quiet living room. He sat down with a cup of coffee and forced himself not to check the camera every few minutes. Instead, he organized invoices from the shop, balanced receipts, cleaned his workbench, fed the neighbor's cat while they were away for the weekend. Hours passed slowly. At 9:41, he finally removed the memory card from the portable receiver connected to the camera system. His laptop waited on the kitchen table. The loading screen felt endless. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3. Then the first recording appeared. Lauren driving. Traffic lights reflecting across the windshield. Soft music playing through the speakers. Normal. Very normal. She left Belmont. Past downtown. Past Mercy General Hospital. Corbin leaned closer. Lauren never turned into the hospital parking entrance. Instead, she continued east, toward Dryden Road, toward the industrial district. The SUV slowed near abandoned warehouses lined with broken fencing and empty loading docks. Streetlights flickered against cracked pavement. Lauren parked beside Building 12. The engine stopped. She waited. Corbin glanced at the timestamp, 7:43 p.m. Nothing happened for nearly 4 minutes. Then headlights appeared. Another vehicle pulled alongside, a black Lincoln Navigator. Expensive, new. The driver's door opened. Someone stepped out wearing polished black shoes and a dark overcoat. The figure walked calmly toward Lauren's SUV. Corbin unconsciously tightened his grip around the coffee mug. The passenger door opened. The stranger climbed inside. The interior light illuminated his face for less than 2 seconds. It was enough. Corbin stopped breathing. He knew that face. Thousands of people in Dayton knew that face. Kind smile, silver hair, perfect posture. The man who had blessed newborn babies, performed funerals, led charity drives, and stood smiling beside Corbin and Lauren 14 years earlier as they exchanged wedding vows. Pastor Nathan Holloway, the senior minister of Holloway Community Church, the man Corbin trusted enough to marry them. The passenger door closed. The cabin became quiet. Nathan adjusted his seatbelt. Lauren handed him a thick manila envelope. Neither embraced, neither kissed, neither behaved like secret lovers. Instead, Nathan opened the envelope and began flipping through paperwork. Lauren looked nervous. She kept glancing into the mirrors. Nathan remained perfectly calm. Then Corbin heard the first clear words through the tiny microphone hidden beneath the seat. "Did you bring everything?" Lauren nodded. "I think so." Nathan smiled faintly. "We're almost finished." Corbin stared motionless at the screen. His original fears suddenly seemed far too simple. This did not look like an affair. It looked like business. And somehow that possibility frightened him far more. Corbin West replayed the recording 6 times before sunrise. Each viewing stripped away another layer of assumption. The first time he searched for signs of an affair, a lingering touch, a secret smile, an intimate glance. He found none. The second time he focused on body language. Lauren looked tense. Pastor Nathan Holloway looked composed, too composed. He sat with the confidence of a man accustomed to giving orders while others obeyed. The third viewing revealed something else. The envelope Lauren handed him contained more than ordinary paperwork. Nathan carefully counted several pages before placing them inside a black leather portfolio. He checked every sheet twice, then nodded. Business, not romance. The fourth viewing focused on audio. The tiny microphone hidden beneath the passenger seat captured more than Corbin expected. Rain tapped softly against the windshield. Air conditioning hummed. Paper shuffled. Then Nathan's calm voice broke the silence. "Did you bring everything?" Lauren answered quietly. "I think so." Nathan frowned. "You think?" A pause. "I copied every file I could. You were supposed to copy all of them." "I know. We don't get another chance." Corbin froze. He increased the volume. Nathan continued. "We've already moved the transfers." Lauren rubbed her forehead. "I hate this." "It doesn't matter what you hate." Silence. Then another sentence. "The account is clean." Corbin leaned closer to the screen. Nathan continued flipping through documents. "The only thing left is his signature." Corbin's fingers stopped moving across the keyboard. His signature, his. Lauren looked toward the windshield. What if he notices? Nathan smiled. He won't. The recording ended moments later as both doors opened and the meeting concluded. Corbin remained sitting in darkness. The kitchen clock read 4:38 a.m. Outside, the first birds had begun singing. Inside, everything felt strangely quiet. The narrator could see exactly what Corbin refused to admit aloud. He was no longer afraid that Lauren loved someone else. He was beginning to fear she had helped someone steal from him. At 8 o'clock, sharp, Corbin unlocked his repair shop as usual. The brass bell chimed. Customers arrived. An elderly couple collected a restored anniversary clock. A firefighter dropped off a broken wristwatch. A college student purchased replacement straps. Corbin smiled, accepted payments, printed receipts. Nobody suspected that his thoughts remained trapped inside a parked SUV on Dryden Road. By noon, he had watched the recording twice more using headphones hidden beneath his workbench. Something else finally caught his attention. Nathan repeatedly mentioned numbers. Transfer numbers, account numbers, reference numbers. He never once mentioned feelings or relationships, only transactions. Corbin remembered every sermon Nathan had preached over the years: honesty, charity, community, trust. The contradiction unsettled him more than anger ever could. Around 3 that afternoon, Corbin received a notification from his bank. At first, he almost ignored it. He assumed it was another promotional email. Instead, the subject line read, "Loan Account Activity Notice." Corbin frowned. He clicked. The message informed him that documentation for a recently approved personal loan had been successfully processed. Principal amount $92,000. His pulse slowed rather than accelerated. Years repairing delicate mechanisms had conditioned him against panic. He downloaded the attached PDF. Applicant Corbin James West. Address correct. Social Security number correct. Employment West clock and watch restoration. Everything appeared accurate, until he reached the signature. Someone had written his name. It looked almost identical to his own handwriting. Almost. The slope of the W leaned slightly higher. The final T ended too sharply. Most people would never notice. Corbin did, because he signed invoices every day, because tiny differences mattered. The signature was a forgery. His breathing remained steady. He closed the document. Printed 3 copies. Placed one inside the notebook, one inside a folder, one inside his office safe. Then he resumed repairing a Swiss chronograph for a customer who arrived exactly at 4. The old man apologized for interrupting. Corbin smiled. "No problem at all." His voice sounded perfectly normal. That evening, Lauren arrived home shortly after 8. She carried takeout containers and smiled as though nothing unusual had happened. "I brought your favorite." Chinese food from Golden Dragon. Orange chicken. Egg rolls. Corbin thanked her. They ate together in silence. Television played quietly in the background. A local weather forecast predicted thunderstorms over western Ohio. Lauren checked her phone 3 times during dinner. Each time she turned the screen away. Corbin noticed. He noticed everything. Later, while loading dishes into the dishwasher, Lauren spoke casually. "Hospital's getting audited." Corbin continued rinsing plates. "That sounds stressful." "It is. They checking financial records." Lauren hesitated for less than a second. "Mostly staffing." Corbin nodded. "Hope everything goes well." She looked relieved. She still believed he knew nothing. After Lauren went upstairs, Corbin returned to the kitchen table. The loan paperwork lay inside a sealed envelope. Beside it rested his leather notebook. He added 4 more lines. Nathan mentioned transfers. Nathan mentioned account. Nathan mentioned my signature. Loan approved for $92,000. No conclusions, only facts. The house settled into nighttime silence. Floorboards creaked softly. The refrigerator compressor started. Somewhere outside, rain began falling again. Corbin walked into his workshop behind the garage, where unfinished clock restorations covered every shelf. An old regulator clock stood against the wall with its front panel removed. Its pendulum hung motionless. Corbin reached inside and restarted the mechanism. Tick, 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 the sound echoed through the room. Steady, predictable, honest, unlike people. His eyes drifted toward the family photo pinned above his workbench. Lauren stood beside him wearing white on their wedding day. Nathan Holloway smiled behind them. His hand rested gently on both of their shoulders. The photograph suddenly looked different. Corbin removed it from the wall, studied it for several seconds, then placed it face down on the table. Outside, lightning flashed beyond the garage windows. The narrator could see the final illusion disappear inside Corbin's mind. This was never about jealousy. It was never about another man stealing his wife. Someone had stolen something far more valuable: his identity, his name, his future. And the quiet watchmaker who everyone believed too gentle to fight back finally understood that he would need more than suspicion to survive what was coming next. He would need proof strong enough to stand inside a courtroom, and tonight's recording was only the beginning. Corbin West slept less than 3 hours that night. He never replayed the recording again. He didn't need to. Every sentence was already engraved in his memory. The account is clean. The only thing left is his signature. The words repeated themselves with the steady rhythm of the clocks hanging inside his workshop. Tick, tick, tick. By 6 o'clock Saturday morning, Corbin was already making coffee. Outside downtown Dayton was still waking up beneath gray clouds drifting over the Great Miami River. The neighborhood remained quiet. Sprinklers clicked across fresh lawns. A newspaper landed on a driveway across the street. Somewhere, a dog barked twice. Inside the West house, Lauren still slept upstairs. Corbin stood by the kitchen window holding his mug with both hands. He looked exactly like the same quiet husband everyone knew. Only one thing had changed. He no longer trusted a single word spoken inside his own home. At 7:30, Lauren came downstairs wearing sweatpants and one of Corbin's old college sweatshirts. She smiled while pouring cereal into a bowl. "You opening the shop today?" "I've got repairs waiting." "You work too much." Corbin almost laughed. Instead, he simply nodded. "So do you." Lauren looked away first. The conversation ended there. 20 minutes later, she announced she needed to stop by the hospital to organize payroll files. It was Saturday. Corbin merely wished her a good day. He watched her white SUV disappear before finishing his coffee. Then he walked into his office and opened his laptop. The loan paperwork still waited on the screen. $92,000. Approved 4 days earlier. Disbursement pending. He downloaded every document, every disclosure, every page requiring signatures. Then he enlarged the forged signature until it filled the entire monitor. The differences became obvious. The pressure points were wrong. The angle changed near the final stroke. Someone had practiced writing his name. Someone had studied him. The realization chilled him more than betrayal itself. This wasn't spontaneous. Someone had prepared for this. His phone vibrated. A customer wanted to know whether a 19th century wall clock could still be restored. Corbin answered politely. "Everything can be repaired if enough original pieces remain." The sentence lingered in his mind long after the call ended. Could marriage be repaired the same way he wasn't sure anymore? By noon, he locked the shop and drove toward Columbus. Traffic along Interstate 70 moved steadily beneath a pale afternoon sky. Cornfields stretched across both sides of the highway. The radio remained off. Corbin preferred silence. He had already made an appointment. Not with police, not yet. He wanted someone who understood paperwork before emotions, someone who believed evidence mattered. At 1:43 p.m., he entered Ross and Fletcher Legal Group on High Street. The reception area smelled faintly of coffee and polished wood. Soft jazz played through hidden speakers. The receptionist smiled. "Mr. West." "Yes." "Miss Abigail Ross will see you now." Abigail Ross looked younger than Corbin expected. Early 40s, dark hair pulled neatly behind her shoulders. No unnecessary decorations in her office, only framed law degrees and shelves filled with binders. She shook his hand firmly. "What brings you here?" Corbin placed a single folder on the desk. "I think someone stole my identity." Abigail opened the folder without interrupting. Loan documents, printed emails, bank notices, the forged signature. She read quietly for nearly 10 minutes, then looked up. "Did you authorize any of this?" "No." "Do you know who did?" Corbin hesitated. "I know who might be involved." She waited. Corbin removed the memory card from his jacket pocket, then placed it beside the paperwork. "I have video." Abigail inserted the card into her computer. The office became silent except for the faint clicking of her keyboard. She watched. Lauren driving. Dryden Road. Nathan entering the SUV, the envelope. The conversation. The transfers, the signature. When the recording ended, Abigail removed her glasses. She folded her hands together. For several seconds, she said absolutely nothing. Finally, she spoke. "You've told your wife none of this?" "No." "Good." Corbin looked surprised. "You don't want me confronting her?" Abigail leaned back. "Absolutely not." She slid the folder back toward him. "People who commit financial fraud expect emotional reactions. They panic when they see evidence. They destroy records. They coordinate stories. They move money." She pointed toward the memory card. "But they cannot erase what already exists." Corbin listened carefully. He appreciated people who spoke with precision. Abigail continued. "From this moment forward, your job is simple." "What?" "Act exactly as you always have. No accusations, no arguments, no questions, no changes." Corbin nodded slowly. She opened another file drawer, pulled out several forms. "I want you to freeze your credit immediately." "Done." "I want copies of every bank statement." "I have them." "Tax returns." 5 years. "Property records." "In my safe." Abigail finally smiled. "You keep excellent records." "I repair clocks." "I noticed." She wrote several notes on a yellow legal pad, then looked directly at him. "Mr. West." "Yes." "I've represented hundreds of fraud victims. Most come here after everything is gone. You came before the money disappeared. That's rare." Corbin looked toward the office window overlooking downtown Columbus. Cars crawled through intersections below. Ordinary people living ordinary lives. He wondered how many secrets traveled inside those vehicles. Abigail's voice interrupted his thoughts. "I want you to remember something." He turned back. "They think you're asleep." She closed the folder. "Stay asleep." Corbin left the office carrying exactly the same folder he had brought in. Nothing about his appearance had changed. He still wore faded jeans, work boots, blue plaid shirt. He still looked like a quiet watchmaker from Dayton. But inside the folder rested the first professional confirmation that his instincts had been right. Someone was using his identity. Someone close enough to know his habits. Someone confident enough to believe he would never fight back. As the evening settled across Ohio, Corbin drove home beneath an orange sunset. Lauren texted him, running late again. He read the message, then slipped the phone back into his pocket without replying. Ahead of him, the highway stretched toward Dayton. Behind him, Abigail Ross's final sentence echoed again. Stay asleep. Corbin intended to do exactly that. At least until the people stealing his life believed they had already won. The following week began with sunshine. Dayton looked peaceful. Children rode bicycles through quiet neighborhoods. Garden centers overflowed with summer flowers. Families gathered outside cafes along Brown Street. Nothing about the city suggested that dozens of invisible crimes might already be moving quietly through its bank accounts. Corbin West unlocked his shop at exactly 7:43 Monday morning. Everything looked the same. The brass bell above the entrance, the old regulator clock near the window, the smell of machine oil and polished walnut. Customers arrived carrying heirlooms that had stopped telling time decades ago. Corbin repaired each one patiently. Outwardly, nothing had changed. Inside, everything had. Abigail Ross's advice remained fixed in his mind. Stay asleep. So Corbin smiled. He laughed politely with customers. He waved to neighbors. He kissed Lauren goodbye every morning. He even thanked her when she brought dinner home late. The performance became part of his routine. Only his notebook knew the truth. Each evening, another page filled with observations. Each recording from the hidden camera added another layer to a puzzle growing larger by the day. Thursday night produced another meeting. Lauren drove to Dryden Road at 7:18 p.m., the same warehouse district. The same black Lincoln Navigator, the same pastor. This time, the conversation lasted nearly 20 minutes. Corbin sat alone in his workshop wearing headphones while rain struck the roof above him. Nathan Holloway sounded relaxed, almost cheerful. You've processed the hospital files. Lauren nodded. Most of them. You missed 3. I couldn't access those accounts. Nathan sighed softly. We only use people with clean credit. I know. The older patients are safer. They don't check statements. Lauren remained silent. Nathan continued, What about your husband? Corbin unconsciously leaned closer to the laptop. Lauren answered quietly. He doesn't suspect anything. Nathan chuckled. He repairs clocks. He isn't the type. Corbin removed the headphones. For several seconds, he simply stared across the room. Rows of restored clocks ticked in perfect harmony. The sound had always comforted him. Tonight, it felt different, almost like a warning. He replayed only one sentence. We only use people with clean credit. The phrase refused to leave his mind. Not people, profiles, credit, accounts. Nathan wasn't talking about romance. He was talking about financial assets. Human beings reduced to numbers. Corbin drove to the county records office the next afternoon. He requested publicly available nonprofit filings. The clerk handed him several printed documents after charging $14. Corbin thanked her and returned to his truck. He spread the papers across the passenger seat. One name appeared repeatedly. Holloway Hope Foundation. Registered as a charitable organization. Food assistance, housing support. Emergency medical relief. Annual fundraising dinners. Scholarship drives. Everything looked respectable, until Corbin reached the financial statements. Large donations entered. Large consulting expenses exited. Unknown service contracts. Transportation fees. Administrative reimbursements. Nearly $600,000 over 3 years. The consulting company receiving those payments had a familiar address. Dryden Road, Warehouse Building 12. Corbin looked through the windshield toward downtown Dayton. Traffic moved normally. People crossed intersections carrying groceries. A city bus stopped beside the courthouse. Life continued. Nobody around him knew what he had just discovered. That evening, he visited the public library. Old newspapers lined digital archives stretching back decades. He searched Nathan Holloway's name. Most results praised charity work, community outreach, holiday food drives, flood relief, church construction projects. Then one article from 8 years earlier caught his attention. A small accounting firm in Cincinnati had accused a nonprofit partner of financial irregularities. No charges had ever been filed. The investigation quietly disappeared. One director resigned. Nathan Holloway's name appeared only once. Listed as an outside consultant, nothing illegal, nothing conclusive, but enough to make Corbin save a copy. His notebook gained another page. The narrator could see the pattern growing clearer. Corbin no longer searched for isolated lies. He searched for systems. People capable of forging signatures rarely acted alone. Someone approved paperwork. Someone processed loans. Someone transferred money. Someone found victims. And someone convinced them to trust. Nathan seemed to occupy the center of every circle. Saturday afternoon brought another surprise. Lauren left home, claiming she needed to organize volunteer schedules for the church's annual community fundraiser. Corbin nodded. She kissed his cheek before leaving. Exactly 42 minutes later, the hidden camera activated. Nathan entered the SUV again. This recording lasted only 6 minutes. The audio quality remained excellent. Nathan opened a folder. Paper rustled. Then his voice became perfectly clear. "We need another profile." Lauren hesitated. "There aren't many left." "What about the widow from Springfield, already done?" "The retired teacher, done." Nathan paused. Then he laughed quietly. "You married well." Lauren did not answer. Nathan continued. "Corbin has the cleanest financial profile we've ever used." Silence filled the vehicle. Lauren finally whispered, "I don't want him hurt." Nathan replied without emotion, "He won't lose anything if he never finds out." Corbin removed the headphones slowly. He looked toward the garage wall where dozens of antique clocks hung motionless after closing time. His own reflection stared back from the dark computer screen. For the first time since installing the camera, anger briefly surfaced. Not loud anger, not explosive rage. Something colder. The quiet disappointment that arrives when trust dies completely. Lauren knew. She knew exactly what was happening. She knew whose identity they had taken. She knew whose signature had been forged. She simply believed he would never discover it. Corbin stood and walked toward the workbench. An unfinished pocket watch rested beneath the lamp. He picked it up carefully. The movement inside had stopped because one tiny steel pin had broken, an almost invisible defect. Yet, without that pin, the entire mechanism failed. Corbin replaced the part in less than 2 minutes. The balance wheel began moving again. Tick, tick, tick. He watched it for several seconds. Tiny components, perfect timing, every piece connected. Human schemes worked the same way. Remove one essential piece, and everything collapsed. He reached for his notebook once more. The pages had nearly doubled since this investigation began. Under today's date, he wrote only one sentence. "I am not the only victim." Then he closed the cover. Outside, the evening sun disappeared behind Dayton's skyline. Inside the workshop, hundreds of clocks continued measuring time with perfect honesty. Corbin listened to them in silence. Somewhere across town, Nathan Holloway probably believed the quiet watchmaker remained asleep. That illusion would not last much longer. Corbin West noticed the change before anyone said a single word. It started with silence. The silence of neighbors who normally waved from across the street. The silence of church members who suddenly looked away after Sunday service. The silence of familiar customers who seemed uncomfortable standing inside his repair shop. Nothing dramatic happened. No arguments. No public accusations. Just small moments that felt strangely out of place. Corbin understood patterns. and this pattern was growing. Monday afternoon, Frank Collins stopped by the shop carrying an old mantel clock that had belonged to his mother. Normally, Frank would stay for 20 minutes talking about baseball or politics. This time he seemed distracted. "You doing okay, Corbin?" Corbin looked up from his workbench. "I think so." Frank hesitated. "You sure?" Corbin smiled politely. "Why wouldn't I be?" Frank scratched the back of his neck. "Oh, nothing." He picked up his receipt and left after less than 3 minutes. Corbin watched him through the front window. Frank climbed into his truck but remained parked outside for another minute before driving away. Something had changed. Corbin simply didn't know what. The answer arrived 3 days later. He was buying coffee at Miller's Market when he overheard two women speaking quietly near the dairy section. They didn't know he was standing behind them. "I feel bad for Lauren." "So do I. She says he's getting worse. Imagine living with someone that paranoid. I heard he follows her. He checks her phone. He accuses her of cheating." The second woman sighed. "Poor thing." Corbin quietly placed the milk back into the refrigerator. Neither woman noticed him leave. Outside, warm July air filled the parking lot. Cars passed normally. Children laughed near the shopping carts. The world looked unchanged, but inside Corbin's mind another piece finally clicked into place. Lauren was preparing something. She was shaping a story before the truth emerged. He drove home without turning on the radio. The leather notebook rested on the passenger seat. When he reached the driveway, he added another page. Public narrative beginning. No emotion, only observation. That evening, Lauren cooked dinner. Spaghetti, garlic bread, salad. The meal looked almost identical to dinners they had shared years earlier. She even smiled more than usual. "You've been quiet lately." Corbin poured iced tea. "Busy. You should get out more." "I like the shop." Lauren nodded. "I just worry about you." The sentence sounded almost rehearsed. Corbin looked into her eyes for only a second, then returned to his plate. The narrator could see what Lauren could not. Corbin was no longer listening to her words. He was measuring timing, expression, breathing, pauses. Everything people revealed without realizing it. After dinner, Lauren stepped outside to answer a phone call. She walked halfway across the backyard before speaking. Corbin remained inside washing dishes. The kitchen window stood slightly open. Wind carried fragments of conversation back toward the sink. "I know." Pause. "No." Pause. "He still doesn't know." Another pause. Then silence. Lauren returned 5 minutes later carrying the same smile. Corbin never mentioned the conversation. Instead, he asked whether she wanted dessert. She declined. At work, the next morning, another surprise waited. Mrs. Susan Keller, one of Corbin's oldest customers, entered carrying a Swiss wall clock. She had trusted him for nearly 20 years. While signing the repair ticket, she looked at him carefully. "You taking care of yourself?" Corbin smiled. "I'm doing fine." She lowered her voice. "Lauren said you've been under a lot of stress." Corbin remained still. "What kind of stress?" Susan hesitated. "Oh, just anxiety. Marriage can be hard." Corbin nodded gently. "I suppose it can." He never asked another question. After Susan left, Corbin locked the front door for lunch. He sat alone behind the counter. The clocks continued ticking. Some fast, some slow, some nearly silent. Every mechanism revealed its condition through rhythm. People did the same. Lauren was establishing witnesses, neighbors, friends, church members, customers. A picture of a husband becoming unstable. If financial investigators ever appeared, if divorce happened, if fraud became public, She already had people prepared to believe her version first. The realization made Corbin admire Abigail Ross even more. Stay asleep. She had seen this coming before he did. That afternoon, Corbin bought 2 encrypted external hard drives from a computer store downtown. Back at the shop, he copied everything. Bank documents, loan files, video recordings, audio recordings, GPS timestamps, receipts, photos, email confirmations. Everything received duplicate backups. One drive remained hidden inside his office safe. The second went into a safety deposit box at First National Bank. He labeled neither one. The folders alone contained over 900 digital files. Each file carried date and time information. Each file fit into a timeline that no defense attorney could easily dismiss. Corbin worked until nearly midnight organizing evidence. His watchmaker's precision transformed scattered clues into order. By the end of the night, every meeting between Lauren and Nathan occupied its own folder. Every suspicious bank notification connected to corresponding recordings. Every receipt matched fuel purchases. Every timestamp matched traffic cameras. The puzzle slowly became a map, and maps always led somewhere. Friday evening, Lauren announced another charity planning meeting. She dressed more carefully than usual. Cream blouse, black skirt, silver earrings Corbin had bought for their 10th anniversary. "You don't mind if I'm late?" Corbin shook his head. "Drive safe." She smiled. "I always do." After she left, Corbin opened the camera feed again. Dryden Road, Warehouse 12. The same black SUV. Nathan entered carrying another leather portfolio. Conversation began immediately. Corbin listened through headphones. Nathan sounded irritated. "We're almost finished." Lauren whispered something too softly to hear. Nathan answered clearly. "You've already told everyone he's unstable." Lauren nodded. "Most people believe me." Nathan laughed quietly. "Good. If anything happens, they'll never trust his story." Corbin closed the laptop before the recording ended. He no longer needed to hear more. The strategy stood fully exposed. Destroy credibility. Control the narrative, then control the evidence. He walked outside into the cool summer night. The stars above Dayton shone brightly beyond scattered clouds. Somewhere nearby, a freight train sounded its horn. Corbin looked toward the empty driveway. He thought about 14 years of marriage, about vows spoken inside Nathan Holloway's church, about promises that now seemed almost fictional. Then he reached into his pocket and touched the small key to his office safe. Cold steel, solid, reliable, unlike words, the evidence already existed. Hundreds of files, thousands of minutes. Every day the collection grew larger. Corbin had no intention of confronting anyone. Not yet. People who lied expected shouting. They expected broken dishes, threats, divorce papers. Instead, they would receive something much quieter. Facts. And facts once organized carefully were almost impossible to silence. Corbin West had spent 23 years repairing clocks. Most people believed that meant he understood machinery. Very few realized he understood time itself. Every damaged clock told a story. A bent gear revealed when someone dropped it. Dust inside the movement suggested years of neglect. Uneven wear on brass teeth exposed hidden pressure long before failure became visible. Corbin approached evidence the same way. Nothing existed alone. Every event belonged to a sequence. Every sequence left traces. The only question was whether someone had the patience to see them. By early August, his leather notebook contained over 60 pages. His computer held nearly 1,000 digital files. Receipts, video clips, audio recordings, bank notifications, parking records, copies of nonprofit filings. Every document sat inside carefully labeled folders. No shortcuts, no guesses, only order. Saturday morning began like every other. Corbin unlocked his shop at 7:42. He brewed coffee, wound the grandfather clock, checked repair orders. At 9 o'clock, an elderly man entered carrying an old railroad watch wrapped in a handkerchief. Corbin recognized him immediately. Walter Briggs, 72 years old, former Dayton police detective. Retired nearly 15 years. Walter had trusted Corbin with family watches for decades. He walked slowly, but his blue eyes remained sharp. "Still fixing miracles," Corbin smiled. "I fix mistakes." Walter laughed softly. "Same thing. The repair itself took less than 15 minutes. A worn mainspring. Simple replacement." While Corbin worked, Walter wandered through the shop studying antique clocks hanging along the walls. Finally, he spoke. "You look tired." Corbin continued adjusting tiny gears. "Busy." Walter nodded. "You always were a terrible liar." The room became quiet. Ticking clocks filled the silence. Corbin stared through his magnifying loupe, then quietly removed it. He reached beneath the counter, pulled out the leather notebook, set it beside Walter. The retired detective looked at it without touching it. "What's this?" "My last 2 months." Walter opened the cover. Every page contained neat handwriting, dates, times, addresses, receipts, mileage, conversations. Nothing emotional, everything documented. Walter read silently for several minutes. His expression gradually changed. Then Corbin handed him a portable drive. "There's video." Walter plugged it into his laptop. Neither man spoke while the recordings played. Lauren, Nathan, Dryden Road, Warehouse 12, transfers, signatures, accounts. By the time the final recording ended, nearly 40 minutes had passed. Walter removed his glasses. He leaned back slowly. The narrator could see what Corbin already understood. The retired detective no longer viewed this as marital trouble. He saw organization, planning, fraud, conspiracy. Walter folded his arms. "Have you confronted them?" "No." "Good." Corbin almost smiled. That was exactly Abigail Ross's advice. Walter looked toward the shop window. Cars moved quietly outside. Parents pushed strollers. Teenagers carried shopping bags. Life continued normally. Then Walter turned back. "You know what impresses me." Corbin waited. "You never assumed. You proved." The sentence remained hanging in the air. Walter pointed toward the notebook. "This isn't suspicion. This is evidence." Corbin poured 2 cups of coffee. Neither added sugar. Walter continued reading through files, then suddenly stopped. "This warehouse." "Dryden Road." "You said Lauren went there 11 times. Corbin nodded. 11 confirmed. Walter looked thoughtful. "What happens if we map every visit?" Corbin opened another folder. Already prepared. Satellite images, street maps, time logs, vehicle movements, traffic camera timestamps, fuel receipts, warehouse arrival times, departure times, Nathan's arrival, Nathan's departure. Everything aligned. "Yeah." Walter stared quietly. "You built a timeline." Corbin nodded again, minute by minute. The old detective laughed softly. "I spent 30 years solving cases. I wish half my detectives had organized evidence this well." The compliment meant little to Corbin. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He simply wanted truth. Walter spread printed maps across the workbench. Colored markers identified every meeting. Blue, red, green. Each color represented a different route Lauren used leaving Mercy General Hospital. 3 separate paths, alternating every trip, never exactly the same. Corbin noticed something else. The church bells at Holloway Community Church rang every Thursday evening at exactly 7. Lauren always reached Dryden Road around 7:18. Walter raised an eyebrow. Why church bells? Corbin pointed toward another receipt. The bells appear on the audio recordings. Walter listened again. Faint ringing. Then Lauren's SUV engine shutting off. Nathan arriving exactly 2 minutes later, every week. Almost identical timing. The meetings followed a schedule. Not random. Planned. Walter leaned forward. What about traffic cameras? Corbin opened another folder. He had already purchased public roadway footage through state access requests covering several intersections. Walter watched silently. Lauren's SUV. Nathan's Navigator. Every Thursday, same direction. Same exits, same warehouse. Walter finally removed his glasses again. You've solved 90% of this. Corbin remained quiet. The remaining 10% mattered most. Who else was involved? Where did the money go? How many victims existed? Walter seemed to read his thoughts. This isn't one pastor and one wife. No, this is bigger. Corbin looked toward the clocks hanging overhead. Hundreds of pendulums moved together, one motion affecting another. Exactly like people inside organizations. One person forged, another approved, another transferred, another recruited victims. The mechanism required every piece. Walter closed the notebook carefully. You need federal investigators, not local patrol. Financial crimes. Corbin nodded. I know. Walter stood slowly. His knees cracked with age. Before leaving, he placed one hand on Corbin's shoulder. You remind me of an old homicide detective. Corbin looked surprised. I repair watches. Walter smiled. No. You rebuild timelines. The retired detective walked toward the front door. The brass bell rang softly above him. Just before stepping outside, he turned once more. Don't lose your temper now. They're expecting anger. They won't expect patience. After Walter left, Corbin remained alone inside the quiet shop. Afternoon sunlight entered through front windows. Dust floated through narrow beams of light. The clocks continued their endless chorus. Tick, tick, tick. Corbin returned to the maps. He looked again at the 11 warehouse visits, then noticed something he had somehow overlooked. Every meeting occurred exactly 3 days before large transfers appeared inside nonprofit accounting records. 3 days every time. Preparation, execution, distribution. The rhythm matched perfectly. Another pattern, another gear inside the machine. He wrote only 4 words beneath today's date. 3-day transfer cycle confirmed, then closed the notebook. Outside, church bells rang across Dayton. Their sound drifted through open windows and disappeared into the afternoon air. Corbin listened carefully. He no longer heard music, he heard timing. And timing more than anything else would eventually expose everyone hiding behind charity, marriage, and trust. The recording began at 2:16 on a Tuesday afternoon. Corbin West almost ignored the notification. Lauren rarely met Nathan Holloway during daylight hours. Their meetings usually happened after sunset when empty warehouses and deserted parking lots attracted little attention. This time was different. Corbin had just finished replacing the escapement wheel inside a French carriage clock when the motion sensor activated. His laptop chimed softly. He set down his screwdriver, removed his magnifying loupe, and pressed play. Lauren's white SUV sat parked beside Warehouse 12 on Dryden Road. The engine remained running. Air conditioning hummed through the speakers. For nearly 3 minutes, nothing happened. Then another vehicle arrived. Not Nathan's black Navigator. An aging silver Buick Century rolled slowly into view. The driver's door opened. An elderly woman stepped out. She moved carefully with the aid of a cane, gray hair, blue cardigan. Small handbag clutched tightly against her chest. She looked lost. Corbin leaned closer. Lauren climbed out first. She smiled warmly and helped the woman into the passenger seat. No force, no threats, only kindness, or something designed to look like kindness. Moments later, Nathan arrived. He entered the rear seat carrying another leather portfolio. The doors closed. The conversation began. The elderly woman spoke first. "I still don't understand." Her voice trembled. Nathan answered gently. "You're simply updating your assistant's paperwork. I already signed papers last month. This is different, for the tax records." Lauren reached toward the dashboard. "You don't need to worry, Dorothy." Corbin froze. Dorothy. A name. The first real victim with an identity. He opened another document on his computer and typed quickly. Dorothy, elderly female, uses cane, silver Buick. Inside the SUV, paper rustled. Nathan spoke softly. "We just need one more signature." Dorothy sounded uncertain. "My husband handled these things. He passed away 3 years ago. I don't understand banks." Nathan's voice remained calm. "That's why we're helping." Lauren handed something forward. A clipboard. Pen-scratching paper followed. Dorothy signed. The sound lasted barely 3 seconds. Corbin's stomach tightened. Years of restoring signatures on antique certificates had trained his eye. Even through grainy camera footage, he recognized hesitation. Dorothy paused twice while writing. Someone unfamiliar with legal documents. Someone trusting the wrong people. Nathan thanked her warmly. Lauren squeezed her hand. The performance looked almost compassionate, until Nathan quietly whispered something after Dorothy looked away. "That's another one." Lauren answered too softly for the microphone. Nathan chuckled. The conversation shifted. Dorothy asked about the mortgage on her house. Corbin immediately increased the volume. "I got another letter. I thought the foundation paid everything." Nathan responded smoothly. "The bank mails those automatically. So, I shouldn't worry. Not at all." Lauren added gently, "We're taking care of everything." Dorothy sighed with relief. The sound broke something inside Corbin. His wife sounded sincere, almost loving. Yet every document she touched seemed connected to fraud. The recording ended 12 minutes later. Lauren helped Dorothy back into her Buick. Nathan drove away. The silver sedan disappeared toward Interstate 75. Corbin remained seated long after the screen went dark. Outside his shop, afternoon traffic continued normally. Children rode bicycles. Customers entered neighboring stores. Nobody knew an old woman might have just signed away her future. The narrator could see Corbin's thoughts moving carefully through every detail. This investigation had changed again. Until now, the betrayal felt personal. His marriage, his identity, his financial records. Now another truth appeared. There were innocent people trapped inside the same machine. People who trusted churches, trusted charity, trusted smiling faces. People who never imagined paperwork could destroy everything they owned. Corbin reached for his notebook. Today's page contained only 2 words: Dorothy Miller. Then another line: potential victim. He closed the notebook. Minutes later, his phone rang. Walter Briggs. "You busy?" "Not really. I found something." Corbin listened carefully. Walter had contacted an old friend who once worked in banking compliance. Several suspicious loan applications had appeared over the past 18 months. Most belonged to elderly widows, retired teachers, disabled veterans, people with excellent credit histories. Many listed Holloway Hope Foundation as a financial counseling reference. Walter lowered his voice. "This is organized." Corbin looked toward the paused video frame, showing Dorothy smiling uncertainly. "I know," Walter continued. "You need to show Abigail everything. I'm going tomorrow." "Good." And Corbin, "Yes, don't rescue anyone yourself." That sentence remained in the room after the call ended. Corbin understood exactly what Walter meant. He wanted to drive across Dayton, find Dorothy, warn her immediately. But Abigail's advice echoed louder. Stay asleep. Premature action could destroy months of evidence. The hardest part of patience was knowing someone else might suffer while waiting. That evening, Lauren returned home carrying grocery bags. She seemed cheerful. "We're having pot roast." Corbin helped unload vegetables onto the counter. Their hands briefly touched. Lauren smiled. "You seem happier lately." Corbin looked at her. Maybe she believed her own performance. Maybe she truly thought she was helping people. Or maybe she had crossed too many lines to turn back. He couldn't know. The narrator never entered Lauren's thoughts, only Corbin's. Inside his mind, one question repeated endlessly. How many Dorothys already existed? Dinner passed quietly. Lauren talked about hospital staffing, church volunteer schedules, upcoming charity dinners. Corbin listened. Every sentence now carried hidden weight. Every mention of charity reminded him of Warehouse 12. After Lauren fell asleep upstairs, Corbin returned to his workshop. The old regulator clock stood open on his bench. He adjusted its pendulum until perfect rhythm returned. Tick, tick, tick. Reliable, honest, nothing hidden, unlike people. He opened his laptop once more. Paused the recording where Dorothy smiled uncertainly at Lauren, then enlarged the image. A small gold wedding ring remained on Dorothy's left hand. Her late husband's memory still rested there. Corbin imagined the man who had probably spent decades paying for that house. Working overtime, saving carefully, trusting banks, trusting churches, never imagining strangers would one day steal everything through paperwork. Corbin quietly copied the video onto another encrypted drive, then printed still images. Dorothy entering the SUV, Nathan holding documents, Lauren passing the clipboard. The timestamps remained visible. Every second mattered. Every frame mattered. The evidence file grew thicker, but so did the responsibility resting on Corbin's shoulders. This was no longer simply about clearing his own name. Somewhere in Dayton, an elderly widow believed strangers were saving her home while they quietly used it as another piece inside a larger financial scheme. Corbin switched off the workshop lights. Darkness filled the room except for dozens of clock faces glowing softly under moonlight. Hundreds of tiny gears continued moving together. One mechanism, one rhythm, one purpose. The fraud ring worked exactly the same way. And somewhere inside that machine, Dorothy Miller was only one cog among many. Corbin feared he was finally beginning to understand just how large the mechanism truly was. The waiting became the hardest part. Corbin West had never considered himself an impatient man. His profession demanded calm hands and endless concentration. Some antique clocks required weeks before the first broken gear could even be reached. Others demanded months of careful restoration before they ticked again. Patience had always been his greatest strength. Now it felt like punishment. Every morning he kissed Lauren goodbye. Every evening he asked whether she wanted coffee. Every Sunday he sat beside her in church, while Pastor Nathan Holloway smiled from the pulpit and spoke about honesty, faith, and sacrifice. Corbin listened without expression. The words sounded hollow now, like a clock whose movement had already stopped while the pendulum continued swinging. 3 days after Dorothy Miller appeared in the hidden camera footage, Corbin drove back to Columbus. Abigail Ross was waiting. She closed her office door before speaking. Did you bring everything? Corbin handed her another external drive. New recordings. She plugged it into her computer. For nearly 30 minutes, neither of them spoke. Lauren, Nathan, Dorothy, documents, signatures, conversations, Warehouse 12. When the final video ended, Abigail folded her arms. This is enough. Corbin looked at her quietly. For what? To begin protecting you. She opened a legal file already prepared with his name. Inside were forms from 3 different agencies: identity theft reporting, credit protection, property preservation, emergency fraud notification. Abigail slid them across the desk. We're filing today. Corbin nodded. No delay. They spent the next hour completing paperwork: Social Security fraud report, state identity theft affidavit, mortgage protection notice, notification to Buckeye Federal Credit Union, requests to freeze future lending activity. Every signature Corbin placed on those documents felt strangely important. For weeks, someone else had been signing his name. Today, he reclaimed it. When the paperwork finished, Abigail made one more phone call. She never mentioned names, only facts: fraud, forgery, financial exploitation, potential elderly victims, warehouse activity. After ending the call, she looked toward Corbin. A financial crimes investigator will review this. How long? I don't know. They move carefully. Corbin almost smiled. So do I. Abigail returned the smile. I noticed. Before leaving, she handed him a final instruction sheet. 10 simple rules. Do not discuss investigation. Do not confront suspects. Keep daily routine unchanged. Save every communication. Record financial activity. Notify attorney immediately if threatened. Corbin folded the paper and slipped it into his notebook. The list matched everything he already believed. Outside, downtown Columbus bustled beneath bright sunshine. People hurried between office buildings carrying coffee cups and briefcases. Nobody knew an invisible investigation had quietly begun. Back in Dayton, Lauren seemed unusually cheerful. She arrived home carrying flowers. Sunflowers. Corbin's favorite. I thought the house needed color. He thanked her. She placed them in a glass vase near the kitchen window. For a brief moment, the house looked almost normal again. The narrator could see the conflict growing inside Corbin. The woman arranging flowers looked exactly like the person he had married. The woman appearing on camera beside Nathan Holloway looked like someone else entirely. Both versions existed at once. Neither erased the other. That night, Lauren suggested watching an old movie together. They sat on opposite ends of the couch. She laughed during familiar scenes. Corbin laughed too. He wondered whether memories could lie, or whether people simply changed until old memories became impossible to recognize. His phone vibrated shortly before 10. A text from Abigail. Credit freeze confirmed. Mortgage alert activated. Corbin quietly slipped the phone back into his pocket. Lauren never noticed. 2 days later, another envelope arrived. Certified mail, Buckeye Federal Credit Union. Inside sat confirmation that all future lending activity under Corbin West's identity required in-person verification with government identification. Exactly what Abigail wanted. Another layer of protection. Another locked door. Corbin placed the letter inside his safe. The evidence collection continued growing. 3 cameras, 900 files, bank records, GPS logs, traffic footage, audio recordings, copies stored in 2 separate locations. Nothing could disappear now. Friday afternoon, Walter Briggs visited the shop again. The retired detective carried no clocks this time, only coffee. He handed 1 cup to Corbin. Any news? Corbin explained the legal filings. Walter nodded approvingly. Good. They're building a wall around your finances. Corbin looked through the shop window toward passing traffic. I wish they could build one around everyone else's. Walter understood immediately. Dorothy, Corbin nodded. And others. Walter lowered his voice. My old contacts checked county foreclosure filings. There are more. How many? At least 6 names connected to Holloway's charity. Corbin remained silent. Walter continued. Same pattern. Loans. Reverse mortgages. Consulting agreements. Most victims are over 70. The words settled heavily inside the workshop. The ticking clocks suddenly sounded louder. Not comforting, demanding. Corbin wrote another page in his notebook. Victims expanding. Nothing more. Saturday evening, Lauren announced another volunteer meeting. She left at 6:14. The hidden camera activated 17 minutes later. Corbin watched from his workshop. This meeting differed from previous ones. Nathan entered carrying no paperwork. Instead, he held a tablet computer. Several charts appeared briefly on screen. Financial graphs, account balances, lists of names. The camera angle prevented full visibility, but one sentence came through clearly. Nathan looked directly toward Lauren. We finish next Friday. Lauren asked quietly, and then Nathan smiled. We disappear. Corbin's eyes narrowed. Disappear. The word echoed inside the workshop. No further explanation followed. Nathan changed the subject. The meeting ended after 9 minutes. Corbin replayed the final sentence twice, then copied the clip into a separate folder labeled Priority. Minutes later, his phone rang again. Abigail Ross. I've been trying to reach you. I was working. Her voice sounded more serious than usual. The Financial Crimes Unit reviewed your documents. Corbin waited. They want everything. Everything. Every file. Every video. Every receipt. They think this is larger than identity theft. Corbin looked toward the paused image of Nathan Holloway on his laptop screen. He already knew the fraud ring was moving toward its final transaction. The investigators finally saw what he had seen for weeks. The machine was real, and somewhere inside it, gears were already turning toward one last operation. Corbin closed the laptop carefully. Outside evening settled over Dayton. Church bells echoed across the city. The same bells heard in every recording. The same bells marking every meeting. The same bells counting down toward Friday. For the first time since hiding the camera beneath Lauren's passenger seat, Corbin realized the end was no longer months away. It was only days away. Friday arrived beneath heavy gray clouds. The forecast called for thunderstorms across western Ohio, but the air remained strangely still, as if the city itself were holding its breath. Corbin West woke at 5:58 a.m. The house was silent. Lauren still slept upstairs. He walked into the kitchen, brewed coffee, and stood beside the window watching dawn spread slowly across the neighborhood. Everything looked ordinary. A newspaper landed across the street. A delivery truck stopped 2 houses away. Sprinklers clicked across green lawns. The world continued exactly as it always had. Only Corbin knew that somewhere beyond those quiet streets a machine built on lies was approaching its final turn. He never mentioned the date. Lauren did. While packing her purse that morning, she smiled across the kitchen island. Big fundraiser tonight. Corbin poured cream into his coffee. Church. She nodded. Nathan says attendance should be huge. I'll probably be home late. Corbin looked at her for a moment. She appeared relaxed, almost excited. He wondered whether she truly believed the story she was telling. Then he simply answered, "Drive safely." She kissed his cheek before leaving. The front door closed softly. Seconds later, Corbin's phone vibrated. A message from Abigail Ross. "Stay home tonight. Do not interfere. Investigators are in position." He stared at the screen for several seconds, then deleted nothing. saved everything. The repair shop remained unusually quiet that afternoon. Only 3 customers arrived: a retired teacher, a young couple restoring a wedding clock, an electrician carrying an old pocket watch. Corbin completed each repair with his usual precision. No one could have guessed that his thoughts remained 40 miles away. At exactly 6:18 p.m., Lauren's SUV appeared on the live camera feed. She left Belmont, passed Mercy General Hospital without slowing, turned east toward Dryden Road. Corbin closed the front door of the shop and locked it from inside. The clocks continued ticking softly around him. He placed headphones over his ears. The recording unfolded in real time. Warehouse 12 stood beneath darkening skies. Lauren parked beside the loading dock. Within minutes, Nathan Holloway arrived, not alone. Another black sedan followed behind him. A heavy-set man wearing a navy business suit stepped out carrying a silver briefcase. Corbin had never seen him before. The 3 entered the SUV together. Nathan sounded unusually confident. "This is the last transfer." The unfamiliar man answered. "The approval's already cleared." Lauren spoke quietly. "What about the remaining files?" Nathan smiled. "They disappear tomorrow." Paper shuffled. A laptop opened. Electronic tones echoed through the speakers. Corbin watched carefully. The silver briefcase contained folders, USB drives, portable scanners. Everything looked organized, professional. Not the work of amateurs. The narrator could see Corbin's pulse quicken for the first time in weeks. Not from fear, from certainty. Every piece finally fit. Identity theft, forgery, charity fraud, mortgage scams, bank transfers. The mechanism stood exposed. Nathan leaned forward. "The widow's property closes Monday." The businessman nodded. "And West?" Nathan glanced toward Lauren. "No risk. He trusts her." Lauren remained silent. Corbin looked away from the screen. The sentence hurt more than the forgery. For 14 years he had trusted her completely. That trust had become another tool for someone else's crime. The recording continued. Electronic signatures flashed across the laptop screen. Several documents changed hands. USB drives exchanged pockets. Nathan looked at his watch. "We're finished." Then something unexpected happened. Bright headlights suddenly appeared beyond the warehouse. One vehicle, then another, then 3 more. The businessman frowned. "What is that?" Nathan turned toward the windshield. For the first time since Corbin began recording him, uncertainty appeared on his face. Blue lights exploded across the darkness. Red lights followed. Engines roared. Car doors slammed. Voices echoed through the warehouse district. "Federal agents, nobody move." The camera shook violently as Lauren turned in panic. Nathan reached for the briefcase. The businessman grabbed the laptop. Neither reached the door. Flashlights flooded the SUV. Commands echoed from every direction. "Hands where we can see them." Nathan froze. Lauren covered her mouth. The laptop slipped from the businessman's hands onto the floor. Corbin remained motionless inside his workshop. Hundreds of clocks ticked quietly around him. He never smiled, never celebrated. He simply watched. Years spent repairing precision mechanisms had taught him that forcing broken gears only caused more damage. Better to let the movement finish naturally. Outside the warehouse, investigators moved quickly. The camera captured only fragments. Dark uniforms, marked vehicles, evidence boxes, plastic gloves. Nathan, stepping from the SUV with his hands raised. Lauren, standing beside him, unable to speak. The businessman arguing loudly before officers led him away. Rain finally began falling. Heavy drops struck the windshield. Water blurred flashing lights into streaks of blue and red. The hidden camera continued recording until someone opened the passenger door. An investigator leaned inside. The image tilted. The recording ended. Black screen. Silence. Corbin removed the headphones slowly. The workshop suddenly felt enormous. Every clock inside continued measuring time with perfect indifference. Tick, tick, tick. His phone remained silent. Minutes passed, then 30, then 45. Outside, rain intensified across Dayton. Lightning illuminated the empty parking lot. Corbin brewed another pot of coffee but never drank it. He simply stood by the window. At exactly 11:42 p.m., his phone rang. Abigail Ross. He answered immediately. Neither spoke for a moment. Finally, Abigail said only 4 words. They took the computers. Corbin closed his eyes. The evidence existed now beyond his own notebooks and hard drives. Federal investigators possessed it. Search warrants would follow. Bank records would follow. Statements, forensic accountants, victims. Everything hidden inside the machine would eventually surface. Abigail spoke again. You did exactly what you were supposed to do. Corbin looked around the workshop. At every clock, every pendulum, every tiny gear still turning honestly through the night. He answered quietly. I just waited. Outside, thunder rolled across Ohio. Inside, the quiet watchmaker finally understood that patience had carried him farther than anger ever could. But deep down, he also knew something else. Tonight ended the fraud. Tomorrow would begin the truth. The first knock came at 8:12 the following morning. Corbin West was already awake. He had spent the night inside his workshop, sitting quietly beside an unfinished regulator clock while rain tapped against the windows until dawn. When the knock came again, he straightened his shirt and walked toward the front door. 2 people waited on the porch. A woman in a charcoal business suit, a man carrying a leather briefcase. Both displayed federal identification. Neither smiled. Mr. Corbin West? Yes. We'd like to speak with you. Corbin stepped aside. The investigators entered the house without unnecessary conversation. One introduced herself as Special Agent Rebecca Sloan. The other, Daniel Pierce, specialized in financial crimes and digital forensics. They accepted coffee but never touched it. Instead, Daniel opened the briefcase and removed a thick stack of documents. We executed search warrants last night. Corbin nodded once. Rebecca studied him carefully. You already knew that. I assumed. Daniel slid several photographs across the kitchen table. Warehouse 12. Evidence boxes. Laptop computers. Portable drives. Stacks of financial records. Corbin recognized Nathan Holloway's leather portfolio immediately. Another photograph showed Lauren standing beside investigators beneath flashing emergency lights. She looked exhausted, almost unrecognizable. Rebecca finally spoke. Your attorney has been extremely cooperative. Corbin thought of Abigail Ross. He simply nodded again. Daniel opened another folder. This investigation now includes 37 potential victims. Corbin looked down at the photographs. 37. The number settled heavily in the room. Dorothy Miller was not alone. Neither were the others Walter Briggs had mentioned. Families, widows, retired workers, veterans, people whose trust had quietly become someone else's business model. Rebecca continued, We've recovered forged loan applications, property transfers, investment agreements, and identity documents. She paused. So far, your evidence matches almost everything we've found. Almost. The word stayed with Corbin. There was still more. Daniel reached into the briefcase again. This time he produced a black notebook. Leather cover, elastic band. Corbin immediately recognized it. Nathan Holloway's personal ledger. Daniel opened carefully to one marked page. Rows of handwritten names filled the paper. Addresses, credit scores, property values, estimated equity. Beside each name sat a handwritten letter. GYPR. Corbin frowned. "What do they mean?" Daniel answered quietly. "Green. Yellow. Pending. Rejected." Human beings categorized like inventory. Rebecca pointed lower on the page. Corbin's own name appeared halfway down. Corbin West. Beside it, Nathan had written only 2 words. Exceptional profile. Corbin stared at the page. No anger crossed his face, only disappointment. Years of honest work. Decades building good credit. Paying taxes. Saving carefully. Keeping promises. Everything he had built had simply become attractive to predators. Rebecca closed the notebook. "We thought you should see it." Silence filled the kitchen. The refrigerator hummed softly. Outside, a lawnmower started somewhere down the block. Life continued. Inside the house, another illusion quietly disappeared. Daniel broke the silence. "There's something else." He removed another photograph. Lauren sat inside an interview room. No lawyer, no handcuffs, just a paper cup and tired eyes. Corbin looked for several seconds, then placed the photograph back on the table. Rebecca watched carefully. "You don't want to know what she said," Corbin answered honestly. "If it's evidence, you'll tell me. If it's emotion, it doesn't change facts." Neither investigator spoke for a moment. Finally, Daniel nodded. "Fair enough." The meeting lasted nearly 2 hours. Bank accounts had already been frozen. Charitable assets seized. Electronic devices undergoing forensic review. 3 additional suspects detained overnight. 1 accountant, 1 mortgage broker, 1 insurance consultant. The machine extended farther than anyone expected. Before leaving, Rebecca handed Corbin a business card. "If you remember anything, I'll call." She paused near the front door. "Mr. West." "Yes." "You did something most victims never manage." Corbin waited. "You stayed calm." After they left, the house felt strangely empty. Corbin carried his coffee into the living room. The porch swing outside moved gently in the morning breeze. For years, Lauren had sat there after dinner, reading novels, talking about vacations, laughing over small things. The swing remained empty now. The narrator could see memories passing quietly through Corbin's mind, not because he wished to return, but because endings always force people to measure beginnings. He wondered exactly when truth had started slipping away. Perhaps years earlier, perhaps only months. No notebook could answer that. At noon, Walter Briggs arrived unexpectedly. The retired detective carried a paper bag from a local bakery. He set 2 cinnamon rolls on the kitchen counter. No one should face federal paperwork hungry. Corbin almost smiled. They sat together without speaking for several minutes. Finally, Walter asked, "How many?" 37. Walter lowered his eyes. "I was afraid of that." Corbin showed him Nathan's ledger. Walter read every page slowly. His police instincts had not faded with retirement. Halfway through the notebook, he stopped. He pointed toward one address. "Do you know this place?" Corbin shook his head. Walter frowned. "It's not a house. It's a storage facility." The 2 men looked at each other. Neither spoke. Corbin reached for his notebook. Another page, another observation, another pattern. Storage Unit 44C. Walter stood. "I'm making a phone call." Within minutes, he contacted Rebecca Sloan. Corbin listened quietly. No speculation. Only facts. Address, ledger, storage unit, potential evidence. Walter ended the call. "They're getting a warrant." Corbin looked through the front window. Clouds were beginning to break apart. Sunlight slowly returned across Dayton. Somewhere beyond the city, investigators were already moving again. Another door would open. Another file would be found. Another victim might finally learn the truth. Late that afternoon, Abigail Ross arrived. She carried 2 folders. One contained updated legal protections for Corbin's finances. The other contained divorce paperwork. She placed both on the kitchen table. "You don't have to sign today." Corbin looked at the second folder for several seconds. 14 years of marriage reduced to typed pages and signature lines. The irony did not escape him. So much damage had begun with forged signatures. Now, healing would begin with a real one. He closed the folder without opening it. "Tomorrow." Abigail nodded. "There is no rush." Corbin walked into his workshop after she left. The old regulator clock still rested on the bench exactly where he had left it. He wound the mechanism slowly. The pendulum swung. Tick, tick, tick. Reliable, steady, honest. For the first time in many weeks, the sound brought him peace instead of suspicion. But one question still remained unanswered. What investigators might discover inside Storage Unit 44C could reveal the final piece of Nathan Holloway's operation, and Corbin sensed that whatever waited there would change far more lives than his own. 3 weeks passed before the courtroom filled. By then, the story had already spread across Dayton. Morning radio hosts discussed the charity scandal. Local television stations replayed footage of federal agents outside Warehouse 12. Neighbors whispered while collecting their mail. Church members gathered in parking lots struggling to understand how a respected minister could have hidden years of deception behind Sunday sermons and charity dinners. Corbin West ignored all of it. He opened his repair shop every morning at 7:42. He repaired watches. He polished brass pendulums. He greeted customers exactly as he always had. Routine remained his refuge. The trial itself would come later. This hearing focused on preliminary financial findings and emergency civil actions. For Corbin, one question mattered more than anything else. Would the evidence speak clearly enough to erase the debt attached to his name? Abigail Ross arrived at the courthouse carrying 2 heavy binders. She placed one in front of Corbin. "Everything is organized." Corbin nodded. He never doubted that. Organization had become their greatest weapon. The hearing room remained surprisingly quiet. No television cameras, no reporters. Only attorneys, investigators, court staff, victims. Several elderly couples sat together in the second row. Dorothy Miller occupied the front seat beside her niece. She smiled faintly when she noticed Corbin. He returned the gesture. Nothing more. Across the room sat Lauren. Gray suit, hair tied back, no jewelry except her wedding ring. She looked smaller somehow. The narrator never entered Lauren's thoughts, only Corbin's. He noticed the distance between them more than the years they had shared. They now occupied the same room but different worlds. Nathan Holloway entered moments later under federal supervision. His confident posture had disappeared. His shoulders slumped. His expensive suit hung loosely. He avoided looking toward anyone. Judge Eleanor Matthews entered promptly at 9. The room stood. Then silence settled once again. The government attorneys began presenting evidence. Digital transfers, charity records, mortgage documents, bank statements, photographs from Warehouse 12. Each exhibit built upon the previous one, methodically, patiently, like gears fitting together. Then came the handwriting analysis. A forensic document examiner approached the witness stand carrying enlarged signature samples. Corbin's authentic signatures appeared beside forged copies used on fraudulent loan applications. The expert spoke calmly. No 2 people produce identical pressure patterns. She pointed toward microscopic enlargements. The natural hesitation points differ. The pen lifts differ. The terminal stroke differs. In my professional opinion, these signatures were not written by Mr. Corbin West. Abigail glanced toward Corbin. He remained expressionless. Months earlier, that statement would have changed everything. Now, it simply confirmed what he already knew. Truth did not become stronger because someone finally believed it. Truth had always existed. It merely waited for evidence. The examiner continued. Several additional forged signatures belonging to elderly victims displayed identical writing characteristics. Same pressure, same slant, same movement. One hand, multiple identities. The courtroom remained completely silent. Dorothy quietly wiped tears from her eyes. Her late husband's estate had nearly disappeared because of those signatures. The government introduced another exhibit, video footage. Not from police, from Corbin's hidden camera. The timestamp appeared clearly. Lauren driving, Nathan entering. Documents exchanged, transfers discussed. The only thing left is his signature. The sentence echoed through courtroom speakers. Nobody moved, nobody interrupted. The recording continued. Then another clip. Dorothy inside the SUV. Nathan encouraging her to sign. Lauren reassuring her. Corbin looked towards Dorothy. The elderly widow stared downward at folded hands resting in her lap. She never looked toward Lauren. The prosecutor paused the video. Your Honor, this establishes coordinated fraud through deception and identity manipulation. Judge Matthews nodded slowly. The defense attempted objections. Privacy, interpretation, intent. The arguments lacked force. Too many documents matched, too many timelines aligned, too many victims existed. Then Walter Briggs testified. The retired detective spoke without drama. He explained timelines, traffic routes, meeting schedules, warehouse visits, 3-day transfer cycles. He praised Corbin's meticulous documentation. I've worked homicide investigations with less organized evidence. Soft laughter briefly passed through the courtroom before disappearing again. Walter returned to his seat. The hearing continued for another 2 hours. Finally, Judge Matthews reviewed the financial findings. She looked directly toward Corbin. Mr. West, he stood. The court finds substantial evidence that your identity was fraudulently used without authorization. She paused briefly. The disputed loan obligations are suspended pending final disposition. Another pause. Preliminary responsibility is removed from your financial record effective immediately. Corbin nodded once. No celebration, no visible relief, only quiet acceptance. He sat back down. Abigail whispered, "We did it." Corbin answered softly, "The evidence did." Across the courtroom, Lauren lowered her eyes. Nathan remained motionless. The government attorneys continued discussing criminal charges. Money laundering, wire fraud, forgery, identity theft, conspiracy. The list seemed endless. By late afternoon, the hearing concluded. Victims slowly exited the building. Outside, sunlight reflected across courthouse windows after days of rain. Dorothy approached Corbin carefully. She still carried her cane. For several seconds, neither spoke. Finally, she reached into her purse. She removed an old pocket watch. The silver case was scratched and worn smooth by decades of use. My husband carried this every day. Corbin accepted it gently. It stopped years ago. She smiled sadly. He always said broken things deserved another chance. Corbin looked at the silent watch resting in his palm. He closed its cover carefully. I'll fix it. Dorothy nodded. I know. She walked away slowly toward her niece. Corbin remained standing outside the courthouse. Cars passed along Main Street. People hurried home from work. Children laughed across the nearby park. Life continued, ordinary, steady, exactly as it always had. Abigail joined him moments later, carrying both binders. The divorce hearing is next month. Corbin looked toward the skyline. One thing at a time. She smiled. I expected you'd say that. The two walked quietly toward the parking garage. Behind them, the courthouse emptied. Ahead lay another chapter. Not one built on revenge, but on rebuilding. Because after months of lies, forged signatures, and hidden cameras, Corbin finally possessed the one thing nobody could ever steal from him again: his name. And tomorrow he intended to begin using it without fear. Autumn arrived quietly in Dayton. Maple leaves gathered along sidewalks outside Corbin West's repair shop, their colors shifting from green to deep shades of amber and red. The city moved forward. So did the people inside it. Construction crews repaired roads. Children returned to school. Church bells continued ringing every Sunday morning. Only now they echoed differently. The doors of Holloway Community Church remained locked. Its parking lot sat empty beneath faded banners advertising charity drives that would never happen. Federal seizure notices hung across the entrance. The building had become another piece of evidence. Corbin drove past it only once. He never stopped. Some memories deserved distance. The criminal proceedings stretched across several months. Forensic accountants reconstructed thousands of transactions. Federal investigators traced shell companies across 3 states. Mortgage brokers, accountants, and financial consultants accepted plea agreements in exchange for testimony. The numbers shocked even experienced prosecutors. More than $8 million had moved through charitable accounts over 6 years. 43 confirmed victims. 12 attempted fraud cases interrupted before completion. Dozens of forged identities. Corbin's documentation had become the foundation upon which investigators rebuilt the entire scheme. His notebook entered evidence exactly as he had written it. Dates, times, addresses, nothing exaggerated, nothing emotional, only truth. Walter Briggs joked that it looked more organized than most police files. Corbin simply smiled. Precision had always been his language. The divorce hearing lasted less than 40 minutes. Lauren never argued. She never challenged the evidence. She never denied the recordings. When asked whether the marriage could be reconciled, she quietly answered no. Corbin answered the same. The judge signed the order. 14 years ended with the movement of a pen. Neither looked toward the other while leaving the courtroom. There was nothing left to say. Some endings required silence. Weeks later, Abigail Ross visited the repair shop carrying several envelopes. The final loan discharge. She handed it to Corbin. He opened the document carefully. Every fraudulent obligation had been removed. His credit restored. His property cleared. His identity legally protected. Another envelope contained restitution notices. Funds recovered through asset seizures would return to victims over time. Dorothy Miller would keep her house. Several veterans would recover retirement savings. Families would receive partial reimbursement from frozen accounts. Justice moved slowly, but it moved. Abigail looked around the workshop. Hundreds of restored clocks filled every wall. I've always wondered something. Corbin looked up. What? Why clocks? He adjusted the pendulum inside an old regulator before answering. Because they never pretend. If they're broken, they stop. They don't lie. Abigail smiled softly, then left without another question. Winter approached. Business slowly increased. New customers arrived after seeing Corbin interviewed briefly on local television. He declined every request for dramatic storytelling. No interviews, no speeches, no book offers, no podcasts. He simply repaired watches. The quiet life suited him better. One snowy afternoon, Dorothy Miller returned. She carried the same silver pocket watch her husband had owned for 40 years. Corbin had restored it completely. The polished case reflected afternoon sunlight through the front windows. He handed it back without ceremony. Dorothy wound it gently. The movement came alive. Tick, tick, tick. Tears filled her eyes. My husband used to say that as long as this watch kept ticking, everything would be all right. Corbin smiled. I think he'd be happy today. She nodded. So would I. Before leaving, Dorothy placed a handwritten envelope on the counter. Inside rested a simple photograph. More than 30 victims stood together outside the courthouse after the final sentencing. Some smiled, some cried, some simply looked relieved. Across the back, someone had written, "Thank you for believing evidence instead of fear." Corbin placed the photograph beside the old regulator clock in his workshop. It remained there for years. Spring returned to Ohio. The maple trees bloomed again. Neighbors waved across fences. Children laughed while walking to school. Life continued. One quiet Saturday morning, Corbin unlocked the shop exactly at 7:42. The familiar brass bell rang overhead. An elderly man entered carrying an antique mantel clock. "Can you fix it?" Corbin accepted the clock carefully. He opened the back panel, examined the movement. One small brass gear had cracked. Nothing more. "It'll take time." The customer smiled. "I can wait." Corbin nodded. "So can I." The narrator watched the quiet watchmaker return to his bench. Sunlight entered through the front windows. Dust floated gently through the air. Hundreds of restored clocks measured the passing hours with quiet honesty. Outside, traffic moved through Dayton exactly as it always had. Inside, Corbin West finally understood that peace was not something people found after revenge. Peace arrived after truth no longer needed defending. He never regretted hiding the camera beneath Lauren's seat. Not because it destroyed his marriage, because it revealed reality before lies became permanent. The evidence had spoken, the courts had listened, the innocent had survived, and the quiet man everyone underestimated had never needed louder words. He only needed patience and time. Some betrayals arrive all at once, but most arrive quietly hidden inside ordinary days and familiar faces. The strongest response is rarely anger. It is patience, clarity, and the courage to let truth reveal itself through facts instead of emotion. Corbin never won because he shouted louder than anyone else. He won because he remained calm long enough to let evidence speak for him. In real life, many people are judged by appearances, by rumors, or by first impressions. Yet character is often revealed not in moments of comfort, but in moments of pressure. The ability to stay steady, think clearly, and protect the truth can change the course of an entire life. If you've ever discovered that someone wasn't who you thought they were, or if you've ever had to choose patience over anger, share your experience in the comments. Your story may encourage someone else who is going through the same struggle today. And if you enjoy stories where quiet strength overcomes deception, don't forget to subscribe. Tomorrow's story may remind you once again that the truth often arrives slowly, but when it does, it changes everything.